You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Hey, the future is sales. Everyone talks about it all the time, and everybody, I think, gets it wrong. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 things that are really going to change the way the Salesforce, the B2B Salesforce is going to look like in the future. And, you know, there's a lot of naysayers out there thinking, oh, B2B sales is going to go away. I've been hearing this my whole career. I remember a manager telling me, oh, they're not going to need salespeople in the future. That was 20 years ago. And today, there's probably 1,000x the number of people in B2B sales. It's going to explode. Let me explain why. Because B2B marketing doesn't work anymore. It doesn't. I spend most of my days now talking more with B2B marketers. And guess what? You know, everything they talk about has nothing to do with marketing. It has to do with customer success, has to do with product development, has to do with great sales and salespeople. And it's such a human-to-human event. B2C, you have no salespeople. Advertising and marketing is all you have. So then you have advocacy, and you have to have smarter and more creative ways putting product placements in movies, things like that. But in B2B, that stuff doesn't get you that far. You have to have, yes, a great product will always help you, but you have to have a great sales force, a creative sales force, the sales force that really can connect with new people and can make their network sing the praises of their product like I try and do with you guys. You guys are my sales force. That's why you are helping me out. You're telling just one salesperson, one other salesperson about the podcast. Now, I've heard the objection, well, I don't want my competitors or my other people in the company knowing this stuff. Yes, you do. Let me explain why. I used to have that scarcity mentality when I started my career. It's like, oh, I'm not going to really talk to the other salespeople or share my best stuff with them. But what I found out is when I did, you have this camaraderie because the best sales content you have is in the salespeople you work with. Why? Because they understand your context as close as anybody else. I can't understand it. I haven't sold your product. Doesn't matter how long I've sold, how many challenges I've overcome, how brilliant I may be, which I'm not. The context of a sale is so unique and so different for each deal and each product and each market. So those people that you work with, they are your best sales coaches. Yes, you kind of compete with them, for territory and resources and stuff. I get that, but they're not your enemy. Okay, let's get into this episode. We're going to be talking with my buddy Chad again. He's got some great insights and ideas about how he sees it going. We're going to be talking about the separation of skill sets and sales, certainly technology. And technology is going to be our biggest enabler. I think so. And then the third biggest thing is we're going to realize how to connect with other human beings because we're never taught this. We're not socialized to this. We're socialized to have our little circle of friends and family, and that's it. But in sales, what we're doing is we're constantly going out and expanding to more friends and leveraging our relationships with other friends. Let's get into this, but make sure there was a big announcement this week. Nudge.ai has come out with their widget, their Chrome plugin that works with Salesforce. So now in Salesforce, you can get all that Nudge IDs, all the information about what everyone cares about. Because this plays into both technology and the ability to connect with people and personalize. We're going to be talking about this in the interview. But you got to get Nudge because it's free. Don't give me, if you're not using it, you're just lazy. And this is what's going to happen. In B2B sales, it's going to be the people that leverage technology to enhance that human connection and aren't going to just stick with their 5 favorite customers because that'll get you to be a B player, but it's not going to get you to be an A player. Let's get into the interview. And thank you. I mean, the podcast has blown up. The downloads are going through the roof because of you. And I thank you for that. Hey, so the future of sales organizations, Chad, I had number 1 is specialization. Have you seen that happening a lot in your client base?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, specialization becomes kind of key for sales reps to start to build credibility, right? And to be able to understand the buyers that they're working with, right? Nobody wants to be sold to anymore. They want to be collaborated with. In order to do that, you really have to understand, where that person is coming from and what it is that they're up against, what they're facing, what problems they have and trying to solve them. And you have to bring value to that conversation. in order to do that, specializing in maybe an industry or vertical, or if it's a tech solution, really knowing how that tech solution can affect a business. I mean, I think that's going to be critical moving forward.
Yeah, because I had done a stint at IBM. The company I was working at got acquired by them. And it was kind of specialization gone mad, but it was necessary. Because you had people who were the salesperson on the product, sales engineers that were on the product. Then you had people who knew the account, people who knew, the brand. And although it seemed, too matrixed, it did work. It kind of came together when people needed it to and kind of dispersed afterwards. And I think we're going to have to specialize in the future because the sales job has just gotten really tough. I think we're seeing it today with, the separation between, people getting meetings like the sales development reps and then the people taking the meetings. But I think it's going to go even more than that. I think the next thing I think is going to be popular is kind of what they call the information concierge, somebody who's building the lists. Are you seeing that, or?
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually interviewed Mark Cosaglow. He's the VP of Sales for Outreach.io.
Yeah.
And he kind of caught me off guard when we were talking. And he's like, the last thing I want my sales reps doing is actually picking the accounts that they're targeting. And I kind of stutter stepped. I was like, wait, what? I'm not used to hearing that. He's like, no. I want my sales reps selling. I want somebody else vetting those accounts that they're targeting so that they make sure that they meet specific criteria, that they are going to be those type of A accounts, and these sales guys aren't wasting their time because they're such, expensive resources, going after stuff that's not going to pan out. And it was kind of eye-opening for me. I mean, they've implemented it pretty aggressively, it sounds like, at Outreach. And it requires more people. I mean, smaller businesses like mine, I wish I had somebody to put together lists, but in larger organizations, I can definitely see how that could be, particularly advantageous. And I think it just goes to that segmentation and that specialization. If you have somebody who really understands how to evaluate, companies, the types of roles and types of problems that they're in, so they can really focus for the people that they're setting meetings for, I think that's going to be extremely advantageous going forward.
That's it, because that job is not, a 50 or 100K job. That job is a 20 or 30K job.
Right.
Just getting those email addresses, phone numbers, social profiles, and putting that into a CRM, and kind of maybe even finding out what they care about to target some personalization. Separating that out so that a rep who's making 80 to 150 doesn't have to spend their time doing that, because that's time consuming.
Yeah, and quite honestly, with all the clients that we've worked with, especially like at Adobe, the constant thing you see is all of the reps are like, well, the first step is get your list. They're like, well, how do I get my list? Where do I go?
Right.
What do I do? How do I know if it's good? And so you can just see the wasted cycles, right? So that specialization on somebody who really knows, okay, here's the criteria that you really need to be focused on. These are the types of accounts we want. Now give that to the people that are going to be actually, pushing them through the funnel. It saves a lot of time, and I think you get a better sense of scale out of it.
And my number 2 thing was using technology. I think in the future, the sales reps who embrace technology, before it's in vogue, the certain things about finding email addresses, finding social stuff, finding what people care about. I think those reps who really embrace technology are going to be the ones that are going to succeed. Are you seeing that, or?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So there's so many tools out there, right? And more come to the forefront every day. And so it can get a little bit overwhelming for reps. The key, I think, is to find a tech stack that enables them to accelerate to human connection, right? Essentially what you want to do is there's information everywhere. You go look at Twitter, LinkedIn, maybe somebody's on Snapchat, whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of places, Zoom Info, you can pull all this information from and put it into all of these different tools. I have a tendency sometimes to see sales reps get, they go too far down into the shiny object, like, ooh, here's a new tool and this is the silver bullet. No. They really need to stay focused on the technology that's going to make them more effective at providing value and having that human connection with the people that they're working with. The tools are plentiful. I guess my advice to any rep would be don't get distracted by them.
Yeah, I think you have to adopt them slowly and get deep into them slowly, and not become a tool aficionado. even though I fall in love with these things. But at the
I know
same,
it's so hard not to,
Yeah.
right?
but I also try and keep a distance too, because there's a lot of them. The vendors say, "Well, you're not using this or that," and I'm like, "Okay, but I'm getting 80% of the value in 15 minutes a day. I don't know if I need to spend another 30 to 60 minutes a day to get the remaining 20% value."
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, if you look at things like Connect and Sell, right, from a dialer or an SDR standpoint, those are some phenomenal tools, right? You can rip through 860 dials in an hour, and it's only connecting you to the people that are actually picking up the phone. That's a phenomenal tool. But then there's all the integration on the back end.
Yeah.
I forget who it was, but I was listening to James Cardberry's podcast, and they had a MarTech guy on, and he was advocating that marketing and sales organizations should have a technology person specifically dedicated to the integration, maintenance, and evolution of that tech stack. So it's not on the sales rep's plate as well. So back again to your first point, specialization, that's probably not a bad idea, especially I think he said there were something like 1,500 sales and marketing solutions, applications, or tools out there that people could choose from. I mean, that's just overwhelming, right? So you just got to be careful not to get too distracted with that stuff.
Yeah, I think any sizable company should have a marketing ops and a sales ops. And if I had the 5 things I'd like to have a sales manager change, it would be number 1 is to get a sales ops person to do your forecast and stuff. And
Oh yeah, I would love that.
wasting everyone's 2 or 3 hours a week to make sure every field is filled in and it all looks the way that he wants to see or she wants to see it. And that's really administrative work that can be done by that person who's not on the phone or in meetings with people.
Right. I mean, when you look at it really, I mean, you look at sales in general, everybody talks about, AI is going to replace sales and all this. The fact of the matter is people will always buy from people until robots are buying from robots. But I mean, at the end of the day, people buy from people. So if you can use the technology and you can structure your organizations and your teams in such a way to really focus on scaling that portion of it, I think you're going to have wildly more success than just relying on, somebody to do it all at once.
That's it, because I think the technology you can use to find people, even connect with them on a human level, but once you engage with them, it has to be on the phone or in person. It's not going to be through email.
Right.
It's at least going to be a GoToMeeting, a Skype call, or whatever you use for screen sharing and stuff. But it has to have that communication, because no one's sitting around waiting for you to call and pitch them.
Right. I'm sitting at my desk waiting for that next cold call.
Yeah, to sell you something. My number 3 was sales reps have got to figure out what I call the mystery middle of the sales process. And I think this is no one really talks about this part. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have, this is a front end where you find somebody, you connect with them, you have that first meeting. But then what reps do is they think they give them a proposal. And and what ends up happening, right? You're giving a proposal to someone who has no budget, some influence, a little political power, but has a big need. But they don't know what to do with it. That's this mystery middle that reps don't understand what happens here and what has to happen here. And you get into the situation where if both people don't know what to do, nothing happens, or it'll either happen by luck or by chance, or it will just die a slow death.
You see the sales cycle drastically increase, right? I mean, if you look at any revenue funnel, you've got, and people will name them or give them different percentages, but you got to find them, qualify them, you got to educate them, sell them, and close them, right? And so right now you see, especially on social media, and everybody's talking about how you find them, how do you prospect, how do you get them in? Well, there's that education piece that there isn't a lot of focus on right now. And that, okay, great, I got you into the funnel. Well, now what the hell do I do with you? Right? Like, if you're not consistently looking at educating and providing insights, providing value to get them to the point where they're like, yeah, hey, I need to buy, and also figuring out if the person you're talking to is actually the guy who can sign the check, or woman, excuse me, because they can sign a check. You can't sell to somebody who can't buy. They may have a problem, but it isn't going to resolve. The things that get funded are the things that are business objectives and business issues, things that are getting in the way of that. And reps really struggle, I think, sometimes to figure out. They're just so happy that somebody wanted to talk to them Like, oh, he took my call. I got to give him a pitch. Now I should just rip off a proposal. Well, that's more cycles that you're spending without knowing if you're really selling to somebody who can write a check, and if you're really meeting a need that's going to make a difference for the business.
That's it. And if they don't understand that part and how to keep that deal moving, and that's what really distinguishes, great reps from okay reps.
Yeah, agreed.
Because it gets stuck there. And what do? They just hound that same person. And I think if I had a 3.5, it would be sticking with one person within the account.
Right.
And not, expanding outside. And really getting out of dealing with just that one person and understanding, the economic issues, the other technical issues, like what you said with integration and everything. They got to understand that because somebody has to do that. And nobody teaches this. There's no course on the mystery middle of the sales cycle. Everybody focuses on that front at the negotiation, the presentation, the demo, but nobody really focuses on how do you keep the deal moving.
Right. Well, and then you get them through let's say you get them through there. Negotiation is a whole nother, if it's a larger company, you're dealing with procurement. What I think it was at CEB said something like 7 people are involved in every decision-making process. So the negotiation portion of it becomes just as critical. Sales is no longer open the phone book and smile and dial until somebody says, yeah, I need a set of knives or some new siding, right? It just doesn't work like that anymore. It's gotten a lot more complex. And, as a sales professional, it probably rubs me the wrong way when people talk about salespeople in the same breath that they talk about politicians, right? It's just, it's annoying because this isn't, it's not a simple profession anymore. And I think it's going to the skill set is going to get more complex for people to really master the entire revenue funnel.
Yeah. And it's the person who's going to figure this out. And that's why I call it the mystery, because it's not the same every time. But
it's different company to company.
Yeah, but you've got to understand that just because you sent a proposal with an expiration date that something's going to happen within that time frame is naive at best.
Without a doubt. Well, I gave him a date. I swear, boss, I swear I gave him a date. They're going to close on this date. Yeah, okay.
That's it. And then it goes on to the forecast, and the manager, it goes from 50 to 75% or better?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it when clients have 50% in their sales stages. Like one of the first things I'll look at is what are the sales stages, and anybody who's got 50% in there, I'm like, 50% is a BS designation, right? Because I can flip a coin and it'll go either way. So you're either in control of the account or you're not. Sorry, a rant on that 50% thing.
Yeah. Hey, so number 4 I think there's going to be a new role. I think it's starting to emerge now as, the chief revenue officer. I'm starting to see that resonate as a way of getting marketing and sales to work together. Have you seen that within your client base or?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when we put together our podcast and we started thinking about who we wanted to talk to, we specifically started talking about, all right, let's get rid of the titles and let's look at how businesses operate, right? So it's all about revenue, or if it's a nonprofit or public sector, maybe it's mission and funding, but there's this flow of money and the complexity that you've seen kind of crop up in both marketing and sales, and everybody complains about there not being enough alignment between marketing and sales. It requires a different type of leadership. So those CROs we've seen some in some of our clients, and they may come from a sales background. They've at least done sales somewhere at some point, at least the ones I've met so far and see coming up. But they have a much broader understanding of the entire way that a company interacts to generate revenue. And I think that's going to be, in order to provide that vision and that leadership, kind of that point on the horizon everybody's aiming to, I think that's going to be critical for organizations in the future.
And I think it's going to require, a very unique person because, sales is getting more complicated. Marketing is getting more complicated. And I think that you're going to have to put client advocacy or client success under that as well, especially if you're in a SaaS model where most of your revenue is recurring. And if you don't get it to recur, that churn is just going to kill you.
Yeah, and if it's interesting, so I spent, before I got into the sales enablement space, I spent the last 10 years doing digital experiences, that merging of physical and digital, and so worked with companies like Verizon and the Minnesota Vikings and stuff. But what's interesting is seeing that concept of experience, that totality of what a sales experience is now creeping into sales. I mean, the CX world proved that the return on investment was huge, right? I forget, I think it was Forbes maybe, did a report on companies that had invested in their customer experience, saw huge returns on Wall Street, right? Well, now you're seeing, and I think it was Salesforce that noticed it in a report Q4 of last year, that sales execs, these chief revenue officers, are going, well, man, I've got a sales experience that impacts my brand. It impacts, the buyer. And the concepts that I've been hearing for 10 years on the CX side, like frictionless, like how do you make the sales experience frictionless, are moving into sales. And it's going to take somebody in that CRO spot that not only understands the mechanics of sales, which is getting more complicated, and marketing, but how to put it all together in something that's seamless, because B2B buyers are now having their expectations shaped by the B2C experiences that they have on a daily basis. And so they're going to have to match that, and to understand that, that doing the right anthropological and ethnographic research and how to tie that into things that still generate revenue, it is going to take a unique skill set, I think, to be a successful CRO.
I think that point about the B2C experience and expectation is really creeping its way into the B2B. Meaning, like, the customer has been in such control in the B2C space that they have all this power at no cost,
right?
And they're just worshipped. And in B2B, it's kind of not necessarily that way, in that it's hard to get into accounts. People don't want to be bothered anymore. They want everything for free. They want to have all the power. They want to get it at the price they want. They don't understand the differences. And, the perfect example I have is, I remember I was looking at this new iPhone app that had come out, and it had like a 1-star review, and it was this beautiful app. It was free. And it's like, all they said was, I couldn't expand the photos. And I'm like, it's a version 1. It's a 1-star. It's free.
Right.
And you took the time to cram.
You can go back and actually you can look at this transition of B2C experiences influencing B2B actually started with Apple, right? So if you think about when the iPhone, it's been a while. I mean, I know we're at 10 years now.
10 years, yeah.
But when that iPhone came out, everybody was like, holy crap, look at this. Like, it was the wow factor. It changed the game. It actually, for users, it was a lot more seamless, but for business, it actually changed the dynamic, right? So instead of IT just developing applications and slapping a user interface on, at the end as an afterthought, all of a sudden their applications and stuff could be deleted with a swipe of a finger. And so all of a sudden the power's in the consumer's hands. So those B2C people started to drive what was a phenomenal experience. Well, those B2C people are also the buyers in B2B. And so their expectations of, look, don't sell to me, make sure it's about me, make sure it's about my value. Those are becoming more prevalent, and their expectations are bleeding over to the point where, if on the B2B side, I mean, I got an email. I actually had put a request in for a demo for an outreach type tool, sales cadencing stuff. And the email that the guy sent me hit me wrong. It hit me really wrong. Like, it was completely all about him. Like, hey, if you're not this good, or you don't do this, or you don't have this solution that we can integrate with, there's no reason for us to talk. And I was just kind of like, what? Like, all right, I'm not even going to respond to this. Like, your tool may be the best one on the market, but you just pissed me off. Like, why would you do that? Why would you take that type of approach, right? And I know, having been doing this for 10 years, that my expectation for the type of experience I want is much higher, and I'm much more aware of it. But I'm seeing it with our clients all the time. The people that you're selling to are influenced by wanting frictionless, easy, collaborative types of experiences. And B2B sales reps, and especially CROs, are going to have to figure out how to deliver that.
They are. And where it really hurts is in the latent sale. This is really what I focus on, is like the latent sales. The person who doesn't know you exist may not even know they have the problem you solve, but it is, 98% of your market. What everyone's doing today is putting all their money and effort into the 1% who's actively looking to buy your product, instead of the 99 that doesn't even know you exist.
Right. Well, and sales reps, I mean, have you seen? I mean, I've seen throughout my career, and I always struggled with it a little bit when I was running teams. Everybody wants to go for the obvious problem, the one that somebody's talking about. But if you dig a little bit deeper, that latent stuff, you're really looking at much larger opportunity. But sales reps don't seem, for some reason, I haven't figured out why, don't seem to focus on or dig into the stuff where there's going to be more opportunity, more dollars that you can sell, more revenue you can reap. I don't understand, and maybe you've seen a solution or you have a solution for it, but I don't know how you get sales reps to see that, especially when they're overrun with new technology solutions and all of that kind of stuff. How do you, I'm just out of curiosity, how do you work with them to get them to understand that latent sale?
Well, it is hard because their managers are focusing them, solely on, call them and pitch them. What they have to understand, and it gets to my point of number 5, is they don't know you. So if they don't know you, they can't like you because they don't know you, right? And they certainly don't trust you. So the days of you being able to use a pitch that's based off of increasing revenue, decreasing costs, everyone does it. So it doesn't really stick anymore. And it doesn't really pop up. And what everybody does is say, I got to come up with a better pitch. I go, no, you have to become known, become liked, and become trusted. And they go, that takes too long. Well, you're already at no. You're there.
Wait, I have to work for this?
You don't have to do a thing to go. So you can stay at no. You're at 0% on the forecast right now. You got to get to 10, right? And that's just not their name and their email address. That's them being able to converse with them. And to do that, they have to know you, like you, and trust you. And you coming up with a more appealing pitch will work with somebody who may be open-minded, but that's not going to get you 99% of the market. That's going to get you maybe another 1%.
Right. I can't remember the last time I've done a canned pitch. Like everything I do is customized to the client that we're talking to. And this is one of the things that we teach, that concept of increasing your familiarity, right? So you have all these tools at your disposal. There's social, there's email, you can leave voicemails. There's this cadence you can create to increase familiarity without creating an ask. Does it take time? Okay, yeah, maybe it takes you 2 weeks so that they actually recognize, you know what? I think I've seen Chad's name somewhere. Maybe I should actually open that email. Or maybe I should respond to that, LinkedIn request because I've seen his name start to work in the brain that way, right? It takes 2-3 weeks. Okay, but if you got no and you're going nowhere, well, then it wasn't even in the funnel to begin with. So at least take the time to build that familiarity, and through that process, understand that person. So if you can understand them, then your pitch can be to them, to their specific problems, to ways that you can uniquely help them. Not just, hey, I happen to work with another executive in the same industry and we did this. Are you up for a conversation? No, I'm not. I'll pass.
Right. It's a lot like buying the drink at the bar. It's like, because that becomes a conversation point, and you start talking about what you're both interested in.
Right.
You're breaking the ice. And I think we know how to do this in the social world and the physical world when we're at parties with people and social situations, but we lose it when we're at work, when we're counting the number of emails we send, the number of cold calls and voicemails we leave. But are you really going from unknown to known? I don't think you are until you're doing something for them.
Yeah, without a doubt. And in order to do it and provide that value to get their attention, you have to, preparation's another big one. I see a lot of reps that just kind of want to, hey, I put together 10 emails. I'm going to rip these out to these people. I'm like, okay, well, great. But if you don't spend the time to do your homework, if you don't understand, again, that person and what they're experiencing, if you're not personalizing your outreach, you're just kind of wasting your time these days. People want to feel important. They want to feel part of the process. And in order for you to, at a cocktail party, you don't just walk up and say, hey, I'm selling this SaaS solution. I noticed you were drinking a Jack and Coke. Do you want to buy this? That's not how it works, right? Like you really got to think of the way that you interact with the technology, or even in conversations. You don't go straight for the sale. It's just it puts people off. And in order to figure out when to do it right, you got to know your soft skills, but you also need to have done your homework and understand what those people are up against.
Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate you joining me today and talking about this stuff. And I'll sum it up at the end, and we'll talk soon. Hey, so what do you think? What are the top 5 the things that you think are going to change your career? You got to keep this in mind, because what's going to end up happening is the people who get this, the people who automate their sales process, that are able to outsource their list building or to automate it, to come up with automated ways of what to focus on every day, because it's just too noisy out there, too many distractions. Those are the people that are going to crush it. I'm doing this. I'm spending my day finding these products for you. Nudge.ai, Pipedrive, the way I organize things. App2Zen. I registered there just to see who's interested in me. It's amazing the people who want to talk to me just because I entered some information. It took the 5 minutes to do that. App2Zen. Check that out. I'm now working with video, co-video in my emails. Insanely more effective than text. You got to check out covideo.com. All the links are in the show notes. All the books that you want on Audible, you get 1 month free. I'm still giving my book away for free. I don't want your money. I don't need it. Well, I need it, but I don't want it. Okay? What do I want? I want your help. I want you to spread the brutal truth. Just tell a friend. Just one salesperson this week. I really appreciate that. And if you post a review on iTunes or whatever podcast player, just take a little picture, a little screen save, email it to briangburns@me.com. I will reply back the next day with a full PDF version of the book. This is not a sample chapter. This is the entire book. Also, if you're a video learner and you want to see what I'm up to, check out the YouTube channel, Maverick Method on YouTube. Make sure you're connecting with me on LinkedIn. Don't be a stranger. I built this huge network of salespeople and people care about sales technology. You can leverage it all just by connecting with me. And if every one of you just saw one piece of my content on Twitter or LinkedIn, liked it, commented, shared it, retweeted it, I would be eternally grateful. Thank you. And I'm really working on some great shows. Make sure you're checking out the B2B Revenue Leadership podcast as well, when you can hear about C-level people and what they care about and how they're growing their.
I want to know the truth, because deep down in places that you don't talk about at team and management meetings, you want me on that call. You need me on that call. We use words like fleet view, volume control, total cost of ownership. We use these words as a backbone of a life spent negotiating something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor inclination to explain myself to people who rise and sleep under the very blanket of revenue that I provide and then question the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, may I suggest you pick up a phone and make some sales calls. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you're entitled to.
Did you expense the lap dances?
I did the job I was hired.
Did you expense the lap dances?
You're goddamn right I did!